I live in a medium-sized city with public transportation, so I don't drive. Unfortunately, the buses stop at 8, so when I work in the evenings, I have to walk home. Now, I've legit been harassed so many times I've lost count. Lots of, hey baby, wanna ride type of crap. Usually a no thank you will suffice, especially as I make a point to walk with my phone and will pretend I'm talking to someone if the situation merits it. Only once have I ever felt afraid for my own safety. It was late. I'd gotten off at 10:30 and was on my way home. Sometimes my then boyfriend would come and meet me, but that night he didn't, probably because it was cold out. I had my phone as usual and was walking fast because I hated the cold. Anyway, this car pulls up and starts keeping pace with me. There were 3 guys in it and one called me baby and asked me if I wanted a ride. I thanked them but declined. Usually at this point they'd go on about their business. Not these guys. They went from hey baby to fuck you bitch in a split second. Luckily or so, I thought I had reached the point in my walk home where I could cut through a couple of lawns and get out of their sight while still headed in the right direction. As I turned, they were still yelling at me, hollering for me to come back. I kept walking, then heard a sound that made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. The sound of a car door closing behind me. When I looked back, both of the passengers were out of the car. I'd only heard one door close because the door to the back seat was gaping open. Both passengers started in my direction. I took off running. I had run around the house that went with the lawn I'd been planning to cut across and started pounding on the door. They kept coming. I started yelling for help, but no one came. I ended up running again to the next house where I pounded on that door. This time the lights in the house started coming on. I kept banging and yelling for help, and the lights started coming on in the house to either side of me. At this point, my would-be abductors decided that discretion was the better part of valor and returned to their car. One of the houses I'd knock at insisted on calling the police. They came and took a report, but there really wasn't anything they could do. One officer did give me a ride home though. I think he felt bad because I was so shaken up. The scariest part of it to me is that I don't know if I'd recognize those guys if I saw them again. I was on my way back home after spending a night out in the center of Paris around midwinter. It was approximately 1 a.m., and after exiting the metro and from where I was, I only had about a 10-minute walk before arriving at my apartment, which was in a bit of a rough neighborhood. I had my earbuds in, listening to some music when I passed a man sitting on some stairs on the side of the street doing absolutely nothing. He wasn't near a bus stop or anything, and at this time of night, you can never be too careful, but I honestly didn't think too much of it. After getting a bit ahead of him, I happened to glance behind me to see him get up and started walking in the same direction as me. Weird, but I didn't feel threatened. I kept walking, reached one of the turns I needed to take, rounded the corner, and saw that the man had taken the same corner as me. I wasn't sure he was following me since there was a chance that people may take the same route on occasion, but let me stress that we were completely alone on the street. I hadn't seen anyone but him since I left the metro. As I rounded each corner, I watched to see if he really was following me. He was. I reached down on my phone to stop my music. I finally get to my street and begin thinking of what to do if this is a worst case scenario type of situation. My apartment building has a code you have to punch in to enter the building, so I was planning on putting in the code as fast as I could and shutting the door behind me. As I reached the door, I quickly punched in the code and realized that the man was right behind me, staring, not saying a word. I turned to look at him and didn't recognize him, but part of my brain was trying to convince me that there was a chance he could know someone in the building. My heart is pounding at this point. As I take the stairs that lead up to each level, the man still trailing behind me. I'm extremely aware of each step he takes, the stairs creaking behind me. I get to my floor, turn on the light, which is on a timer system, which will become important later on. I arrive at my door. I open the door, throw my bag inside and tell my ex-girlfriend to lock the door. She does, so I turn to face this man. His eyes were wide and frightening, and he had his hands in his pocket. His arms and body were twitching and shaking. The adrenaline in my system made me feel like my whole body was tense. I felt so ready to knock this guy out. "You don't live here, do you? What do you want?" I asked. His expression doesn't change, and he doesn't say anything. His eyes are glued to me, his hands are shaking inside his pocket, and I feel like he might have a knife. I ask him again, "What do you want?" And after about a 2-second pause, the hallway light goes out. Suddenly, everything is plunged into complete darkness, and all I can hear is my own heart and the man's heavy breathing across from me. I felt like it was all some big practical joke. It was so well timed. After being frozen for a second, I start pawing at the wall for the light. If he's gone by the time I turn the light back on, I'll just shit my pants and that'll be it. I managed to flick the lights on, and he's still there, but he's taken a step back, which was already a good sign. I step towards him and tell him that it's time for him to leave, and he shakily nods and starts towards the stairs. He seems to be really high and possibly homeless. I accompany him back downstairs and out the door. But as he leaves, he turns around and holds out a hand to shake. I reluctantly shake his hand and it's ice cold. After that, he was gone. I was driving home from work at 2 a.m. I'm a nurse and I live in a small city. The roads were totally deserted and it was a freezing night. I don't live far from work, maybe a couple of miles. I'm driving down a residential street around the corner from my house and I see a man lying face down in the street. Now remember, I'm a nurse. My first thought was, great, gotta help this guy up. I was coming off a long shift and falls happen all the time. As I slowed the car down, I suddenly realized what an idiot move that was. I'm a 100-pound woman, and I don't carry any weapons. I thought I should do something to help this guy, so I called 911 as I drove past him and slowed to a stop at the end of the block. While I was stopped at the light, I explained to the dispatcher that there was a man in the road who might need assistance. All of a sudden, I hear a loud bang from the driver's side window. I screamed and looked over. A man was pounding on my window and jiggling the handle of my locked car. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw that there was no man laying in the street. Still on the phone with 911, I screamed to the dispatcher and floored it through the red light. I quickly told him what happened, even though I was right by my house. He told me to keep driving. After a few minutes, I had calmed down and he told me to loop back around. I pulled over down the road from my house and stayed in the car. I didn't see the man anywhere. So I got off the phone with the dispatcher who told me he was sending a police car to cruise the area. As I gathered up my things, I did a final scan of the area, and I saw the man. He was walking with 2 other men. I hunched way down in my car until they were far down the road, then bolted into my house. I don't know if he had an ill intent, but it freaked me the hell out that he wasn't alone. Always lock your car doors and carry mace.